any parents who are in that situation of being separated from your children. For a child to be imprinted with potentially watching their parents have a very bad relationship, to then witness and feel energetically a parent picking themselves up, creating a whole new story, building their health and their mind and a better community, building themselves into this totally new self that is grounded and happy and able to sustain beautiful relationships. Those children will be like superhumans because they've seen what's possible. They will know that even if life gets really bad, we can do anything if we choose to pick ourselves up. What if you get to be that for your children, for anyone in your life? And for those of you who listen to anything and everything I do, it's most likely what you're here for. And what you need to do now is decide to start. Before you listen to today's episode, I'd like to ask you a huge favor. So many of you listen to this podcast, but you're not yet subscribed, potentially on any platform. The more of you that subscribe and share this with your friends, the more that we can bring more content to you, more topics and more knowledge and wisdom and amazing guests. And right now, this is my passion project. So I'm not making any money from it. And it does take a lot of my time amidst supporting my incredible clients inside the Lovely Radical Academy. And I get so many messages of lives that are being changed because of having access to this exciting knowledge and support and conversation and community. And by simply clicking a button to subscribe and to share, you're part of that impact, which is pretty cool. So take a moment now, hit subscribe, share this with your friends, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome to Evolve or Repeat. This is going to be a life hack style episode because of a lot of you have been requesting this. And so I've extracted some really juicy topics from my DMs, from comment sections, from feedback from those who have downloaded the self-love and confidence guide and so on. And the biggest theme I see is we can get into absorbing so much content and information and learning lots of things, but so many people keep repeating similar patterns or emotions or problems in their lives rather than learning something and actually implementing what is learnt, which is the thing that changes the program that's creating the problem. It's all inside of us. So from today's episode, take what resonates and leave what doesn't, and implement consistently whatever you do take on, and you'll finally start to see change. And if you are challenged with consistency, with implementation, then that's why I created Lovely Radical Academy, which is a great way to support with all of those internal things that seem to be barriers, that start looking very convincingly like external barriers, but are actually all started within our own programs, and they can be changed. And we do all of that inside Lovely Radical Academy. So if you haven't reached out to learn more about that, you can do that anytime. So first we're going to go to a topic from Ryan, who said he'd like to learn more about finding harmony between planning and taking action. How organized should I be? And is being disorganized even a problem? Does being organized or disorganized waste energy? Daily intentions and goal setting, is that a thing? And how does it all tie together? So this is my experience, and I guess what I've seen work for so many people over the years. If you don't have a solid foundation, then you're just going to constantly be challenged by any little thing that life throws at you. And life's going to rock and roll you no matter what. And I can tell you right now, and I did not believe that this was possible many years ago, but when you actually have a solid foundation, and I'll talk a little bit more into that, the challenges actually become fun because you recognize that challenges are actually the things that always get you to the next awesome level. And when you can have enough of a foundation in your body, in your mind, in your bank account, and just in your environment in general, then You feel supported even when life hits you. So, what are foundations? Like I just mentioned them before, like how's your health? Because without your health, you actually have nothing. And most people, and it's absolutely wild, and it was me once in the past because none of us got this education in school about our bodies, but most people aren't doing the basic things that our human machine body needs in order to run itself optimally. And they're quite simple: getting enough clean water in every day, making sure you're eating a lot more healthy foods, which are foods that are alive, foods that are from the earth, not things that are in a package, even if they've got great marketing like vegan or sugar free or whatever. Most of those things aren't actually any better for you. How can you start to strip it all back and start with the basics? Consuming good foods, consuming good water, removing any toxic stuff that's coming into your physical body. And then what are you doing to move your body every day? Movement is proven to resolve so many physical health challenges and mental health challenges. And you don't have to go to the gym and do a 40-minute hardcore workout. You could just walk around the block. You could put a great song on and dance with your kids around the living room for 10 minutes. So how are you moving your body every day? And then what are you doing for your mind, for your stress levels, for creating clarity in your own mind? How can you create some stillness every day just to see what drops in, to see what's currently existing and taking up space there? And there's so many different tools and techniques, like there's brain dumping and future scribing and like meditation and breath work and all of these different things that can be done, and they can be done without needing to pay money, without needing to take up a lot of your time, to create some space in your own mind so that you can see clearer, so you can take opportunities when they come to you, and everything becomes easier to navigate. And then I mentioned environment, and I teach a lot about language and story, and it's our story that creates our reality, because whatever we're constantly talking about, focusing on, choosing to communicate with others around us, is stacking a program which then is going to find evidence of more of that program in our life. And so if we're in environments that we're constantly telling our pain story or our problem story or our sickness story or our loneliness story or our heartbreak story or our abuse story, whatever, if we're in those environments, and we've probably created them if we're in them because we've been playing into that, then when we change that environment, it makes changing the story so much easier. And when we start to change the story and we stack that program, your reticular activating system finds evidence of the new story, of the new program. Even if it doesn't feel real to you yet, you're hypnotizing yourself with a better story, because we're always constantly, always being brainwashed by whatever it is we're choosing to focus on in our own minds and consume externally. So what is your environment like? What are you consuming? I think there's another topic we're going to get into on that a little bit later. Something else for planning and taking action is self-management. It's never to do with time management. It's always about self-management. And we tend to, just like we don't do the bare minimum for our body, we tend to waste a lot of time on things, and we don't really recognize it until we bring some focus to that. There's a process I get people to do inside LRA, which is an honest time audit, where I get them to audit their life moment to moment for a few days, and we realize how much of life is being wasted on some things. And when we can actually create a strategy to get around that and stack a new program, a lot more gets done, and then more time is created, which feels really great. Something else that's really important for planning and taking action is a priorities list. So if you're anything like me, I have a super ADHD activated mind, and then God forbid I sit down to do a creative task, because then that just opens up like 10 million more amazing creative business project ideas. And yet I know I could do them all. However, I can't do them all right now. So I have a priorities list. I either have it in my phone or on my desk, where I just write all the awesome ideas that come in down. And then every now and then I'll assess it and look at it and go, okay, cool. This is all awesome, but what is a priority right now? What could happen right now for a business owner? What's actually going to bring in finances right now so I can continue creating that solid foundation to grow any project off? And then rank the priorities and get them done. Does being disorganized waste energy? I believe we always have access to an unlimited source of energy. And this is why foundations are so important. You'll never even be able to believe that's possible. I know I didn't when I had multiple chronic health conditions, but you'll never be able to even access the possibility of that physically and mentally until you create foundation and you start to experience little moments of it. And you're like, oh wow, what if I create more of a foundation? What if I support my health more? What if I actually meditate for 10 minutes instead of 5 minutes? Like, it's quite simple, guys. It doesn't mean that it's easy, because it usually means we have to be consistent, and humans are lazy AF. Let's be honest. And that's just our programming. Evolutionary programming deems that we be as safe as possible. Our brain is going to shut down very convincingly anything that you might need to do to create the life you really want, because that is so unfamiliar and therefore it's unsafe, and your brain is very good at its job. And I love things like setting intentions and having gratitude every day, and future scribing is something that I do most days. And you'll hear so many people in the self-development world talking about this, and it is great. And what good is gratitude if you don't actually feel it? And can you future scribe? And what that is have you gotten super duper clear on what kind of future vision you would like to have? Because most people don't even allow themselves to dream about having a day off, let alone having 10 days off a week or whatever. That doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean? Like, most people won't even allow themselves to imagine a better future because they don't want to be disappointed again. Can you do it anyway? Just for funsies? Actually start getting really clear on a vision of your future with everything that could possibly go right, and actually scribe about that every single day. Write it down, tell that story, because what's that doing? It's stacking a program. You're hypnotizing yourself with a story of things that you want, rather than a story of all the things that are currently not working or could go wrong or did go wrong. And we get what we focus on. So on gratitude, I'm going to move to the next topic, which is gratitude. Francoise brought this up in a comment section recently, and how important it is to always start with gratitude. And I 100% agree. Gratitude is a magnetic energy, and we are all made up of energy. Everything is, including money. So when you can feel the gratitude, and I'm going to get into this because here's the thing. A lot of self-development is all about the fluff, about the feel goods. It's great, and we all move through our different progressions of doing self-development. I know I did years of the stuff that felt really nice because I'm a kinesthetic and I didn't want to feel yuck anymore. However, the key of ultimate transformation and change to get to where you want to be is going to require some massive discomfort at some stage. And if you can lean into it sooner rather than later, then you change your life real fast. And gratitude can be one of those things, but can you be writing down things you're grateful for and then actually sitting there and going, what does that actually feel like? What is that experience for me? Like, cool, I'm grateful for my family. What does that mean? I'm grateful for my house. Great. So every time rent comes out, can you sit for a second and be like, wow, I have a roof over my head. I have food in the fridge. I can just get up right now and go make myself a sandwich because I just paid for this home. Like, oh, it feels so good to sit here while it's raining out or while it's 1,000,000 degrees out and feel the fan on my skin, or feel safe and supported in my own bedroom because I created this little sanctuary that I get to pay for. Like, imagine how much more money might actually start to flow to you if you were grateful. Like, really recognized how powerful it is that you get to pay your rent, that you get to pay your car registration, that you get to pay a parking fine, which essentially means that you're paying for roads to be fixed and all sorts of other things. Can you get into real gratitude that is being grateful for everything, not just the stuff that feels nice in the moment? Can you even start to be grateful for the hard things that have happened? because anyone who's created better outcomes in their lives because they've done the work know that whether we like it or not, whether we want to thank other people who hurt us or not, usually those experiences are the reasons that we get better outcomes. That something great actually couldn't have happened if something bad didn't also happen. It's the law of polarity. So can you ask yourself, what has to happen for me to actually feel grateful for everything, including the things that maybe consciously right now are annoying, or that I don't want to have to do, or that I wish hadn't happened? That's working with every part of yourself to change. All right, Kate asked around implementing habit change in a sustainable way. So for example, wanting to drink more water or do at least 20 minutes of exercise every day. So there's lots of different, I guess, things out there in the world of how to implement habits, and it's 21 days or 28 days or whatever it is. And what if you just changed your lifestyle? And in order to do that, start small. So this is why so many people kind of loop over and over again with health, is that we go all in and we do this huge 30-day challenge and booty blast or gut cleanse or whatever it is, except it's like 30 days, which first of all is not enough time to support your gut or your microbiome to do anything. It'll make you feel good in a moment because it's given your immune system a moment to breathe, but it's not actually resolving anything. If you want to resolve anything with your physical health, with your mental health, with anything, it's going to require sustainable lifestyle change. It's going to require you to do things probably very differently, and to overhaul everything, to go like cold turkey on everything that you currently potentially brings you some joy and passion, then it's just not sustainable. So start small. And as I said before, most people aren't doing the basics. So ask yourself, am I drinking 2 to 3 liters of water a day? Hopefully it's not tap water, because that's a little bit like toxic tea. Am I eating lots of fruit and veg every day? Am I making sure that I do something for my mind every day? How have I worked out today in some way, shape, or form? How can you start to do the basics? Like, can you have a checklist of those 4 things? And before you go to bed, no matter what, even if you're lying in bed at the end of the day and you haven't done your 20-minute workout, or you haven't had your last liter of water, get the fuck out of bed and do it. So you can check that little box and get that dopamine hit for checking a box, because we all love that, right? So that accountability piece, so checking the box, is super powerful. And I know I have a lot of my clients inside the academy, they download an app when they're finding accountability hard, and so we curate their own checklist for whatever it is they're working on right now, and they have to check it all off and send me a screenshot by the end of each day to make sure that they've done it, and then we celebrate together, which is great. So what has to happen for you to be accountable? Is it a checklist? Is it telling everyone that you live with that you're going to do this thing so that they call you on your shit if you don't? Is it getting a coach? Is it getting someone to check in with you? What does that have to look like for you? And doing that consistently, for like a month or so, will create enough change for you to start accessing what's possible, for you to start physically feeling what's possible, for you to start seeing maybe changes in your reality of what's possible. And potentially, in order to start, you have to recognize the worst case scenario if you don't. And so I've talked on my podcast before, I think it was with Rhiannon, who we talked about the different drivers. So we're either driven by pain or we're driven by pleasure. We're either driven by something that's behind us that we want to get away from, or we're driven by something we want to move towards because it's exciting. And most of us are driven by pain, by the past, by just wanting to get away from that thing that felt like crap. But then we never actually get any further than just away from it. And the unconscious mind will then find a way to get back to pain because that's familiar, more familiar than something beautiful in the future, because we've given it none of our focus or time. So can you get real with yourself and actually do some research around what's the worst case scenario if I never do something for my body. Like, oh, if I don't drink enough water, maybe I'll just need more energy, which maybe I'll just have a couple of coffees a day instead of two, which long term destroy your hormones, destroy your immune system, will probably get you eating and drinking lots of other crappy things, because the more it wears you down, the more your brain goes for more and more quick hits. Chronic illness ensues, infertility ensues, reactivity when trying to be happy with your partner, yelling at your kids. Like, we don't think about what might happen long term if we don't do the little things. And the reason I have a business, the reason I am here able to help people, is because so many people don't do this and hit rock bottom and then need someone who has a way to help them do all the things, like to stop them completely bottoming out. And so have you actually recognized the worst case scenario rather than actually going there first? Get real. What is it going to mean if you don't do the thing? And you can also start creating a pleasure driver as well. So sometimes we have to really get clear and create a negative pain driver in order to get us the fuck up. And you could do that consciously and choose to and actually allow yourself to go there, or you wait until your unconscious mind creates enough problems and patterns and pain in your life till you hit it unconsciously, and then you're like, how did this happen? And it was you continuing to not do the basics that would have created stability. So starting small, starting with the basics, and then starting to stack on top of that. You can also habit stack, which is something I love to do. So while I'm doing my movement for the day, I'll also be doing something for my mind. So absorbing education or inspiring content or something, or a podcast. And starting to ask myself, how can I do more things together so that it's not using up as much of my time if I don't have much time right now? And then starting to slowly create more time for it. Create accountability, whether that's a coach, whether that's having a checklist app or something on your wall by your bed, or asking the people in your life to challenge you if you're not doing it, and also make sure you're challenging yourself, because it's actually not on them, it's on you. And have a think about what's driving you. Do you have a clear towards driver? Do you have a clear away from driver, or are you just kind of floating in the middle, like everything's kind of all right now, so I don't really need to do it? You're gonna eventually get a pain driver, and I tell you right now, that's never fun. And I've said it before, the feather, the brick, and the truck. When you're in that in-between phase, and you're in that like, oh, nothing's really that bad, it'll probably get better, but you may be having some negative health symptoms. Maybe you get reactive sometimes, maybe you get sad sometimes. That's the feather. That's the whisper that you need to start doing something. Then you might get a brick thrown at your head, which can be getting sick, a diagnosis, your partner leaving you, losing a whole bunch of money, getting scammed, whatever it is. You don't want to wait for the truck, because the truck, I'll leave that with you. Vanda said, how to not be reactive to negative people and how to respond to them instead. So I'm not going to get too much into this concept because it's something that I build to working with people in my programs, because it's the pinnacle of self-development and it's hard as fuck. Let's be honest. The first thing I'm going to say is, do you know yourself well enough to know why you might be reacting to someone you perceive as negative? Where is that actually coming from in you? Because you might be standing side by side somebody else and a negative person is in front of you. You're feeling reactive and the person next to you might be like super chill, because you've got different programs that are being activated by whatever the person is doing in front of you. So how well do you know yourself? How well do you know your triggers and where they actually stem from? Because we all have a core belief system that's being activated in those moments when we're triggered, when we're reactive to anything in our lives. Knowing that core belief system or program for each of us individually means that we can start to resolve it. A lot of the times, a lot of our belief systems and the way that we are the way we are, as people say, aren't even something we consciously chose. They're just a program that we've repeated for a really long time, that might have started from something as heavy as sexual trauma in childhood or being pushed over in the playground. It can actually create the same program. And when we start to resolve those programs and start writing a new story and a new program and have routines that are set up to support that new story and that new program in your health and your mind and your body, you become less reactive. So a lot of the times we're reactive for a number of reasons. It's the unconscious program that's being activated that we haven't actually recognized in ourselves yet. It's emotional intelligence, which stems from that knowing. It's our nervous system and our hormones. So most humans on Earth right now are imbalanced hormonally and have very stressed out nervous systems because men are living the way they're living, women are living the way they're living, and neither of it is actually conducive to how our bodies need to be supported. So creating that health foundation is super, super powerful and will release so much pressure from your body from feeling reactive in any situation. And then spending time with your own mind, spending time with yourself and what's actually coming up for you. So advice for in a moment where you're witnessing someone being negative in your perception, can you ask yourself, hey, do I need to say anything right now or do anything? Can I actually just excuse myself? And this is a line I give to some of my clients who have these experiences, whether it's with family or relationships or people at work. Hey, I've got something coming up in me from what you just did or said. Is it okay? I'm just going to excuse myself because I'm not going to serve this conversation right now with how I'm feeling. And I really want to make sure that we continue this later. Is that okay? So actually take it on, because you're specifically being triggered. You're specifically being activated in this moment. Yeah, they might be doing something really terrible. And it's in your reality to show you your next level of work. So excuse yourself from the situation. Say you're going to come back to it and then actually go away and go, how is this my trigger? Where is this coming from? And if you need help with this, that's what a lot of great coaches do and great people who are educating people about their unconscious programs. So if you need help with this, you guys can always reach out. And it is the most powerful thing to do with yourself and your own mind, because it's, as David Goggins said, it's one of my favorite quotes lately. When you go to war with yourself, you find an awful lot of peace. And it feels absolutely delicious when you do. Jamie brought up a really interesting line in one of the comment sections. So it was about always being kind to each other and don't judge a book by its cover. And I found that an interesting line, and I wanted to speak into it from the perspective of evolving. So if we are finding ourselves judging someone else by their appearance, or we feel that we're being judged by our appearance, both sides of the coin get to ask themselves, what are my core insecurities? For what purpose am I currently insecure about my cover, about being judged for how I look externally? Again, coming back to those core foundations, how is my health? Like, do I actually feel and look as healthy as I'd like to? Maybe I could come back to that. Am I doing things every day to support my appearance? And I'm not talking about appearance like the models in the magazine. I mean appearance as in health, vitality, balance, which shines through without needing any products or any specific protocols. Like when you're really going within and starting from health from the inside out, You need very little stuff to actually invest in to make yourself look better on the outside, which is really a vibe. You know, am I moving every day? Am I eating good food every day? Am I drinking good water every day? Guys, it comes back to really simple stuff. And it's interesting how challenging we find implementing the simple things every single day. But if you find that you are judging others for their appearance, or you feel judged for your own appearance, what is that insecurity stemming from? And how can you start to improve it for yourself? Not for anyone else, for yourself. Because if you're recognizing that you're judging others for their appearance, or you're feeling judged for your appearance, it's coming from within you. There is some level of insecurity about appearance in general. And this is great because it's being highlighted that you just get to work on your appearance in a healthy way that is sustainable, which was really fun. Matt Walsh asked how to deal with the woke, which I'm very excited about speaking into. So some of you listening may have no idea what we're talking about, and I'm actually not going to get too into this because people apply this to many different things. But to put it in a nutshell, there's a lot of social issues in the world that people scream about, fight about, argue about, distance themselves from family members about, like so many things. And bringing it back to an individual level. If you want the world outside of you to change, you have to change. I'm going to say that again. If you want the world outside of you to change, you have to change. We can't scream to the leaders of industry and the government that they have to do things differently, because that never works. Look at history. What does work is individuals starting at home and that rippling through the world behaviorally. So if you're in a certain camp or a side, the first thing I'm going to say is that environment or community heading towards a long-term outcome that feels really great for you? Is there actually a blueprint of how to get there, and is everyone actually doing it? Or is everyone continuously looping back to who's to blame? Who do we need to scream at? Who do we need to demand they change? Like, it's the same thing with self-development. If you continuously keep going in a loop all the way back to problems and pain, but you never actually get any closer to solutions and happiness and groundedness and connectedness and joy, it's the same thing. So if you're in those communities where it just feels like we're always in problems and we're waiting for something or someone outside of us to be different for us to feel better, you're never going to. Start at home. If you're in communities online, sweet Jesus, like this is something lately that I have been doing some pretty major research in the back end on this, and I've joined lots of different groups to witness what's happening. And the thing about humans is we, especially in the last few years, we're stripped all the way back to survival in many cases. And the next step up from survival is tribe. When we've gone all the way back to survival, when so much has been taken away from us, when we feel powerless, when we feel out of control, the first step we really need after that is coming together in tribe. Except usually in that state, everyone's still in survival, but they're just doing it together. And when a human is in survival, they're going to focus on all the dangers. And it's not until we individually start to progress from like, wait, this isn't getting us anywhere. This just feels like it's looping back to who's to blame all the time. And yet I did this thing where I feel a little bit better, or I tried this program, or I did this health kick, or whatever it is. And I know that things can be better, but maybe I'm going to have to step away from the tribe for a minute and focus on that and implement that myself. And then you start to see new tribes of people who are also doing that. And you come together and you create strategies for yourself. You create programs to stack of the things that you really want to see in the world, that you become yourself first. And that opens everything up. But you're never going to see that from the survival stage. You're never going to see that from step 1 or from step 2, which is the tribe. So what tribe are you currently choosing to be in? And does that tribe have a long-term outcome in mind that they actually know how to get to? Because so much of the time, so many of these tribes are just in that survival state. They found one little thing, like connecting with others or having certain events or talking in a certain way makes them feel good in the moment. And so they're like, let's just do more and more and more and more and more of this with more people. And it's great until you realize that it's not actually getting you any further. So perhaps you have to step back from all the noise for a moment. We call it the changing of the tables. Ask yourself, can I just stay at home for the next couple of months and go to work and just mind my business, get really clear and create myself a foundation, get clear on my intentions, on what I'm grateful for and what I actually want my outcomes of life to be? And what's the gap between where I'm at and where I want to be? And what do I need to start doing every day to get there? And when you do that, not only do you line up with new communities of people who are doing the same thing, and then you do that together, and that moves society and humans forward, that's how we change the world. So there are a lot of social issues that have a lot of noise, and it's scary how much attention some are getting that are in the long term incredibly damaging and dangerous. And you will never create change by screaming or yelling at it or demanding that something or someone else be different. We have to ask, how can I change? What am I going to need in order to be effective in creating global change? And what you're going to need is a strong foundation of self, is to know that your health's good, your money's good, your home environment with your relationships, with your partner, with your kids is good. When that's good, then everything is going to be easier to navigate, to have great conversation around, and to drive the human race forward. It's quite beautiful, and it's incredibly effective. So kind of answers it and kind of doesn't. Now, I'm going to probably butcher this name, and I think it's Jorgen. I'll put it up on the screen and you can correct me. As a father that's been alienated from my beautiful twin daughters, the past 8 years suffering debilitating depression and parental alienation, what can I do to cope? So I wanted to read that out in full because there's a fair bit in the language of this that is a powerful starting point. So I've reached out to this individual personally because when it gets to this point, like, massive action is required in self. Again, it all comes back to self. And I've already touched on so many things in this episode so far that could help in this situation. Now, depression is a state that we get into when we've been playing a character that is not us for too long. And most humans are playing characters that aren't them because we're just repeating programs that we learnt as children. We never actually most of us never get a moment in school or in our lifetime to stop and go, wait, who am I? What do I want? How do I want my life to turn out? What do I want to do for work? Or what kind of relationship do I want to build? How do I want to build? Like, we don't do that. It's not built in anywhere. We have to choose to do that ourselves. And this is why so many of us get depressed. I was for many years. Because our whole system is exhausted from playing something that is not working for us, that we didn't even choose. So if anyone listening to this is in a state where they have been left by their partner, or they've been abused by someone, so they've had to separate, or they've had their kids taken away from them. I have a client who we moved through this very thing last year, and she's had an unreal outcome, and I'll speak into that. So this client came to me. She'd already been without her kids for about 6 months or so, and she'd just bought the home where she had grown up, and family had since passed, and it was the home where she was abused as a child. And she was renovating it and she was working on it, but it was just bringing everything up at the same time as being without her children, because they weren't allowed to live with her because of the state that she'd gotten herself into, because of her own programming that she did not choose. And this isn't to blame parents, this isn't to blame society. We were dealt a shitty hand, but so were they. Right? So anyone who has traumatized us or abused us were just doing the best they could with the shitty programs that they were handed and that they were programmed with and that they navigated through, without any of this knowledge or awareness or access to support that we have as humans now, which is incredible. So we actually get this opportunity to change things. So when she came to me, we really had to go hard and fast and all the way in, because there was a lot stacked against things ever being better. She had been alienated as a parent. Her children had been taken. She was living isolated in a place full of traumatic memories and just trying to get out of that loop. We went through a lengthy process. It didn't actually take that long. It was about 12 weeks. And she continued to implement all of the strategies since. And she recently started working with me for another year, which is really great. She's also going through a similar training to be able to support people the same way I do. And she now has her children back with her. She now is able to converse calmly with her ex-partner to co-parent their children together. She's completely renovated this incredible house into this new, beautiful sanctuary, because she's been able to choose to do that work and use that time that she had without her children to strip everything away and build the foundation with a clear idea of who she wanted to be, to start building her identity in the middle of her life. It's never actually too late. And so the first thing that needs to be done is to get away from places and people and situations and conversation that might be using words like suffering. So I'm linguistics trained. It's all about what we're actually constantly saying to ourselves, what we're programming and hypnotizing ourselves with. That's what our brain finds more evidence of in the world. So if you're in situations or environments or communities or Facebook groups that are just constantly running the story about pointing out everyone's problems and sharing, and here's my trauma story, get out of there. Get out of there. Whether you have to do like she did and be in a home on an isolated farm in the middle of nowhere and joining a coaching program online, or whether you find something in your community, like get into a new space, get into a new story, start writing your new story. Use this time. What if this time is a gift to actually become the version of you that you were supposed to be and that you will be, because you had to go through everything that happened in order to know that you could create that person and build that person. And you know what that does, just to any parents who are in that situation of being separated from your children? For a child to be imprinted with potentially watching their parents have a very bad relationship, to then witness and feel energetically a parent picking themselves up, creating a whole new story, building their health and their mind and a better community, building themselves into this totally new self that is grounded and happy and able to communicate and able to sustain beautiful relationships. Those children will be like superhumans. because they've seen what's possible. They will know that even if life gets really bad, we can do anything if we choose to pick ourselves up. What if you get to be that for your children, for anyone in your life, and for those of you who listen to anything and everything I do, it's most likely what you're here for. And what you need to do now is decide to start. Okay, so we've got a couple more, and the next one is fun. I'll probably label the episode this. Bethany asked, how is everyone a narcissist? Everyone in capital letters. So I've done a lot of content recently around narcissism, and I've said specifically, everyone is a narcissist. So the great thing about content is you want to challenge the fuck out of people. And the people who get triggered are usually the ones that need to hear and implement the change from that message. I know I was talking to a couple of clients recently and a couple of friends recently in this world who we all recognize that it's the people who pissed us off and called us out and made us angry that were the reasons we changed everything, because we realized, oh wow, that's my trigger. How is that my trigger? How is that my work? Oh, I'll get to work on myself. Yay. And then change happens. So what I will say is actually no. Like, not all people are necessarily narcissists in the new version of narcissism. So if we strip it all the way back to narcissists and the actual etymology of narcissism or being a narcissist, it's being completely involved in oneself. And at the end of the day, you take everything away from a human, they're going to be completely involved in oneself. Look at what happened during COVID. Yeah, the slogan was we're all in this together, but everyone was in that for themselves. And none of us want to admit that, because that wouldn't be the nice thing to do, right? But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, everyone's going to be in it for themselves. And we all have that polarity within us. Now, if we look at the new version of narcissism, which has been created as this whole big thing, very much so by the medical world, by the world that wants you to keep coming back to sessions and learning about all your problems and learning about all the things to be afraid of and avoid, and keeps you in the pain loop, which is very profitable. My intention's always to actually get you out of the pain loop and into the happiness, expansiveness, so you don't have to keep paying people to help you heal. Like, healing can actually just completely happen, and then you move forward. And then you just have those challenges that I talked about at the beginning, which are kind of like, oh, this is hard, but it's fun because it's my invitation to my next level. And you're never, ever, ever going to see that if you're in environments, groups, arenas, consuming brainwash. And brainwash is whatever we're continually allowing ourselves to consume, content-wise, story-wise, linguistically, of narcissism and how your ex is this and how to be afraid if they say this, like 5 things that a narcissist would say, like 10 ways to know that they're gaslighting you. Like, guys, everyone's actually a narcissist. Everyone's actually gaslighting each other and themselves most of the time in some way, shape, or form. Everyone's actually doing these things in some way, shape, or form if it's in your reality. Now, there are some people that I probably would not give that label at all. And they're the people who actually don't even know much about the whole world of narcissism right now. They're the people who are just minding their own business, who are focusing at home on their foundations, who are doing the thing, who are working on themselves and becoming the best version of themselves, and then meeting other best versions of themselves and other people and creating happy lives. They're not constantly being like, oh my God, how do I be afraid? How do I analyze the situation? Like, and here's the thing, there's the narcissists who everyone's pointing at and shaming and blaming. And now we even have like a unofficial label in the medical world for it, which is a bit ridiculous, because then we're just getting a reason to shame people even more. And those people diagnosed with those things are actually the most traumatized children of us all. And then you've got the other narcissists which are the ones who are, again, needing everyone to know about their victim story. I was one of them. That was me in the past. That was how I attracted other narcissists, because we attract what we are in some way, shape, or form. And I was being narcissistic, being like, I've been through all these horrible things, so like focus on my horrible thing and let's make sure it never happens again, and demanding that anything and everyone else change so that I would have to have a happier life because of them changing. Except I wasn't looking at myself. I wasn't owning the fact that I had problems and I could actually resolve them and make things better. And the only way to do that was to get the fuck out of any of those communities that were encouraging to focus on blaming and pointing the finger at someone else, to focus on all these ways to avoid pain in the future. You can't avoid pain. You cannot avoid bad things happening. They're going to happen if it's for you. If it's part of your journey, if it's part of your learning, if it's part of your evolution, bad things are going to happen. They happen to everyone in some way, shape, or form. And like I said, once you actually resolve the pains of the past, you open up totally new experiences of the future. You meet better people, which then build on that new story of great things happening rather than everything going wrong. Because what's happening in that whole world is that everyone's becoming afraid of each other and not even doing anything, which is silly. So according to the Mayo Clinic, I'm going to run through a few things that I found really interesting. According to the Mayo Clinics, they state that these are some key factors to narcissism. So being self-centered, having a sense of entitlement or superiority, manipulative, controlling, strong need for admiration, difficulty taking feedback, and easily wounded. So as I said, my story, and I'm wondering if you can relate, in any relationship, I was super calm, I was kind, I was understanding, I gave space and room for the other person to grow. I was never demanding of anything. I was encouraging and supportive. And when I was cheated on or gaslit or lied to or abused or hurt or abandoned or discarded, raped in one case, many experiences I've had, I certainly fell into a state of confusion and an obsession with my own story and what had happened, and I needed attention, I needed pity, I needed support from friends and community, naturally self-centered because of it. And as a part of like coping with that, as a part of protecting myself, which is a mechanism that we all have, I went through times of feeling superior because I was being the bigger person and I was working on myself instead of gossiping or blaming. There were times where I had no empathy for these men. You know, they should have been better to me. They should have been this or that. I absolutely wanted to be needed and desired and be admired. Like, especially when you've been hurt or discarded, it's like going cold turkey on a drug addiction, like on a chemical level inside your body. There are many times I refused to see it any other way or take any feedback. I refused to recognize these men as hurt people who had terrible programming and belief systems themselves. And I was easily wounded because all of me had gotten to such a state, such a story of victimhood, and I was running it constantly. And I was 1,000 times more likely to see any cracks in a situation, like someone was maybe going to hurt me or wound me, because it was what I was focusing on so much and trying to learn how to navigate out of this. And I certainly wanted to manipulate any conversation and perception to make sure that people saw how good I had actually been. Even though in my striving to be perfect in relationships and giving up, you know, maybe what I wanted, I was in turn being manipulative. I was in turn being narcissistic, trying to get what I wanted by being the best person in that situation, even if it meant giving up the things that I actually needed. And so you can start to see how all of those things that the medical system says is narcissism is also applied to those of us in the victim state. We can only see a behavior and expression in someone else that also exists within our own programming somewhere. And you can start to, look at the human's natural evolutionary programming to care for oneself no matter what. Makes sense, right? And for those who say, but I put them first no matter what, or I put my kids first no matter what, I put my job first no matter what. Hold up. What do you get for doing that? What did you expect you should get for doing that? It's never really completely for them. There's always a level of something we want in return. If I could put my kids first, hopefully they'll love me and they'll accept me and be good to me as a parent. If I put my partner first, hopefully they'll stay with me. If I put my job first, hopefully they'll promote me. There's always an exchange that we desire from what we give, and that's okay. It's actually okay. And one of my great mentors said it to me in a training room. Narcissism can actually be a really beautiful thing when used correctly, because we've actually resolved the negative undertow of what drives most of the negative narcissistic behavior in the world. Like, some of the most wonderful and successful people are also called narcissists because they have cared about themselves and about what they're doing so much that they've created legacies and massive corporations because of it that run a lot of our lives and make our lives a lot easier. And someone who is less in the world of narcissism can recognize that there's a lot of this chaos going on, and maybe it doesn't apply as much to them. I know a lot of people who are just like, what does that even mean? Because it's just not part of their reality, because it's not that they've been lucky. It's just that they've chosen to focus on building themselves and becoming the best version of themselves and not feeding into all of the drama that feels good. It's that tribe, right? Except remember, what happens in the tribe never really gets to the solution. Sometimes we've got to step back and ask ourselves, what can I do to change? What can I do to address any of this kind of behavior within myself, anywhere in my reality, anywhere in my programming, so that it's not part of my reality or programming anymore? Can you start? When did I start doing these kinds of things? There's better ways, better questions that we can ask. Like, can I be self-centered about my experience and story and see the other person's side? Can I feel superior, which is a level of safety we all have, without hurting others or shaming others? Can I have compassion for everyone in any situation? Yes, including those who have hurt you the most. Can you learn to love and admire yourself fully so you don't actually need to gain it from others in the world? And can you take hard feedback? Like, if they're a narcissist, how and where are you also one? Now that's power. And how can you focus on building yourself a solid foundation of self-worth and health and finances and community and care, so that you cannot be wounded by anything like you were before or hurt anyone else? So it's a really hard thing to hear. It was the hardest, I'm telling you, it was the hardest piece in my self-development journey. It was going to war with myself. It was horrid because I had been the good girl. I had done all the right things. And yet I'd been wanting something for it. And when I hadn't gotten that, it was very easy to go into victim mode. And yet, like I've said, in that mode, there's an awful lot of narcissism. So how can we clean up the past? How can we resolve it? How can we actually completely heal from it so that we start really experiencing a new evidence of a new program? And you will never get there if you're hanging out with all the narcissist haters, because they're also narcissists in their own special way. Because we all are. And it can be a great thing, and it can actually help you create an incredible life for yourself, for your loved ones, and for your community in the world, because the ripple effect is real. Because we don't inspire anyone, we don't create change at all by screaming at it or yelling at it. We create change by being it. And when others see that, it's like Nelson Mandela said, we give them permission to do the same. We give them a point of reference of what's possible in a whole new direction. So that was a big one. We've got one more. So Troy said, what's the thing you talk about having a picture for different bad words? Can you talk more about that? So I love this. And for the purpose of today, we're going to touch on the word struggling because it was used in one of the topic questions. And so we're going to do a little thought experiment for everyone who's tuning in right now. If you are driving or operating machinery as you listen to this, maybe pause it and do it later because it's going to require you to close your eyes. So close your eyes, and I'd love you to recognize the picture that comes into your mind for struggling. Struggling. What is the picture that comes into your consciousness? For me, and it might be different for everyone, but so really hone in on what your picture is. For me, I see someone tied to a chair with lots of rope underwater, struggling to get free and running out of air. We all have a visual representation of different words that we use in our language. It's like an imprint of what we believe that means. When I say the word struggling, I am sending a signal to my brain through my programming that that thing is happening to me right now, that I am underwater, bound to a chair, trying to get free and running out of oxygen. Basically, that I'm about to die. Your brain doesn't know the difference between that actually happening and you telling it it's happening. So if we're constantly using language that has a really stressful or scary visual representation for our unconscious mind, no wonder everyone's nervous systems are fried. No wonder everyone's immune systems are exhausted, because we are constantly saying we're struggling, or we're terrified, or we're horrified, or we're stressed, or we're anxious, or we're depressed. All of these words, and there's so many more. Those who have been through LRA know the list of words. And those words can be swapped out for different things. Those words actually can be completely removed from your vocabulary altogether, and that alone will start to change your story and allow you to start to recognize better outcomes and allow your body the moment it needs to actually relax and breathe and be like, oh my God, we're not in danger. Because what happens is when you're saying something or telling a story or using a word that's sending that signal to your brain that you're in trouble, you go into fight or flight. You go into survival state, which means that adrenaline gets released in your system, which is incredibly stressful for your system. The whole purpose of that was to keep us alive back in the day, where maybe there was a lion in the camp and everyone had to run really fast. Except now we're activating that every few minutes rather than maybe once a month or once every couple of months. And then we add in things like toxic foods and drinks and not ever exercising and treating our bodies like crap. And we wonder why we have all these problems. So how can we pull it all back and go, well, what is the story I'm constantly telling? Are there words in that I have some pretty scary and stressful pictures attached to? How can I start to clean up the way that I think about my life, the way that I speak about my life, and the way that I tell everyone about my life? And I did a YouTube series on this, back in 2018 now it probably is. You can scroll back on YouTube and find it. Make sure you subscribe. And I talked about this in 3 parts of our internal language, our external language of how we speak to and about ourselves, and then how we speak in the world and the conversations that we're having with others. And that 3-part process of actually cleaning that up and starting to internally and externally tell a story that is going to release stress from your body and your mind and start to get you moving in the direction of where you actually would like to go, everything starts to change. And so what could happen if you started taking on some of these things and implementing them now? And if you don't have community or environments around you, maybe it's going to require taking a step back and just being on your own for a minute. Back in 2017, I had to do that. I hit a rock bottom and I had to step back and shut everyone else out for a second so I could actually get clear on if I even wanted to be here anymore. That's where it got to for me. And from that space, I built a whole new life. And I've been able to help probably over 500,000 people all around the world, probably more so, which is wild. And that was by accident. So what could happen if you started to do this on purpose? If you started to ask, what can I do every single day to lay those foundations, to rewrite the story that I'm constantly telling, to move away from any environments or conversations or community that are focusing on pain and problem and blame and shame? And yeah, maybe I have to sit at my own table for a little while until I've gotten myself a strong enough foundation to go back out into the world, to maybe set some boundaries with people who are in that arena, and to maybe meet some new people and have new conversations about better things in new arenas, on new tables. And that can be scary, and it'll change your life. And if you're looking for a table, I created this beautiful program called Lovely Radical Academy. It's a beautiful 12-month program which covers everything, and you get one-to-one coaching with me. So for now, I'm going to ask you the question, are you going to evolve or are you going to repeat? And I will see you all on the next one. If you like that episode, then make sure that you click here to check out some of the other conversations with my amazing guests and friends. And if you really liked it, you can click here to subscribe so that you get notified each time a new episode goes up. And you can click down here to share it with your friends if there's something that they might also like to know. See you next time, lovely.